Hi, and welcome to the F1 Book Club for the Singapore Grand Prix. Now, this week I have chosen a book called The Singapore Grip by J.G. Farrell. It was first published in 1978, and I believe that Christopher Hampton has just adapted this book for a new TV series which is set to air on television in the UK in the near future, and it stars Luke Treadaway and David Morrissey. But back to the book. What did I think? Well, it's obviously set in Singapore, and the time frame is from about late 1939 through to when the Japanese actually invade. It would probably be a cross between The Empire of the Sun and Tenko, both of which I thoroughly enjoyed, but it was nothing like it. It was a little bit long-winded, as you can see. It was 697 pages long. It was very wordy. It jumped about a bit too much for me, but maybe that's because by the time I got to page 333 I was a little bit bored, so I was very much skim reading, and when I see skim reading I was reading one line, maybe 2-3 lines, just to try and get the gist of the story. It was okay. Like I say, it is very long, very wordy, but it does actually, despite the length and the wordiness, give you a really good descriptive impression and idea of what life was like in Singapore as the Japanese began their march towards Singapore, and the urgency and the desperation of people trying to leave Singapore to safety, flying to safety, be it to India or to Australia. The book centres on a family called the Blacketts, and there's Walter Blackett and his wife, and they have 3 children, Joan, Monty and Kate, who's slightly younger. Like I said, very wordy, very descriptive. It was okay, but at the end I felt a bit cheated, because you've got 600 and odd pages of the build-up to the Japanese invading, and then it just kind of stops, and you know that Mrs. Blackett and Joan and Monty and Kate get out of the country. You think that Walter has got out of the country, but you're left wondering, has he or hasn't he? And then the rest of the characters are obviously sent to Changi like everybody else, and it just kind of finishes. So there's no resolution. You don't really know what happens. You get one chapter after the Changi chapter saying, oh, sometime in the future Kate is sitting at a breakfast table in London, and you're like, okay, but that doesn't really tell me who she married or what happened to the rest of the family. And when you read a book, I don't know about you, but I certainly do, unless there's going to be another book, you want all the questions to be resolved. So it was okay. It was an okay read. Very lengthy. If you want a 697 page book to read, can thoroughly recommend it for a very long journey, maybe going to Singapore or coming back from Singapore. So it's The Singapore Grip by J.G. Farrell. Give it a go, and if you really can't be bothered to give it a go, look out for the TV series. I know I will watch the TV series just to probably visualise what I've read. And I will see you next week for the F1 Book Club for the Russian GP.